The rain hammered the restaurant windows like fists demanding entry. 47 minutes. That's how long Dante Moretti had been sitting alone at a table meant for two. The crystal glass in front of him hadn't moved. Neither had he. Around him, couples laughed over wine, their voices blending into a soundtrack of everything he wasn't experiencing tonight. The chair across from him remained empty. He checked his phone again. No messages, no calls, no apologies, just the kind of silence that told a story louder than any excuse could. His jaw tightened as a waiter glided past, eyes deliberately avoiding his table. Everyone knew. That was the worst part. In a city where his last name opened doors and closed mouths. Tonight, it had earned him nothing but pity. The maitre d' whispered something to a server near the kitchen entrance. A young woman with dark skin and nervous hands clutched a notepad against her chest. She hesitated, then started walking toward him. "Hi, viewers. Kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is." Dante didn't look up when she reached his table. He could feel her presence, the way she shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Uncertain, scared maybe. Most people were. "Sir, would you like me to clear the second glass?" His voice came out flat, stripped of emotion. He finally lifted his gaze. "She's not coming." The waitress froze. Her name tag read Clara. She had the kind of face people usually overlooked, soft features that blended into backgrounds. But her eyes caught something most people missed. They weren't looking at his tailored suit or the Rolex on his wrist. They were looking at him. "Maybe she got stuck in traffic," Clara offered quietly. Or maybe she realized who she was dining with. The words tasted bitter. He reached for his glass, fingers wrapping around the stem, but not lifting it. Clara set her notepad down on the table. The gesture felt deliberate, like she was choosing to stay instead of running. "Maybe it has nothing to do with you at all." That made him pause. Really pause. In his world, everything was about him. Every handshake carried weight. Every conversation hid agendas. People didn't speak to Dante Moretti unless they wanted something or feared something. This waitress seemed to want neither. She leaned in, close enough that he could smell lavender soap on her skin. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Sometimes being left behind means you're being protected from what would have destroyed you." The restaurant noise faded. The rain against the windows became distant thunder. Dante stared at this woman who had just said something no one in his 34 years had ever dared to say. Not his advisors. Not his family. Not the men who'd take bullets for him. She'd offered him grace. Before he could respond, Clara straightened up, grabbed her notepad, and started to walk away. But something in her words had cracked open a door he'd welded shut years ago. A door he suddenly wanted to walk through. "Wait." The word left his mouth before he could stop it. She turned back, eyebrows raised. "Sit with me." He gestured to the empty chair. "Just for a minute." Clara's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't. I'm working," and the manager. "1 minute." His tone wasn't commanding. It was almost pleading. "I want to know what you meant by that." She glanced toward the kitchen, then back at him. Whatever she saw in his face made her decision. She slid into the chair across from him, spine straight, hands folded in her lap like she was preparing for an interrogation. "What do you know about protection, Clara?" Dante asked. A sad smile crossed her face. "Enough to know it doesn't always feel like safety." He nodded slowly. There was a story behind those words, hidden in the shadows of her eyes. Pain she carried quietly, the way he carried his. For a moment, they weren't a Mafia heir and a waitress. They were just two people who understood what it meant to survive things they couldn't talk about. The moment shattered when Clara's eyes flicked past his shoulder. Her expression shifted from calm to concern in half a heartbeat. "Sir, there's a man at the bar. He just took your picture. What would you do if someone tried to humiliate you on the worst night of your life?" Dante didn't turn around. That would show weakness, and men like him couldn't afford weakness. Instead, he watched Clara's face, reading the reflection of danger in her widening eyes. "What does he look like?" His voice stayed level, conversational, like they were discussing the weather. "Older. Gray suit. He's putting his phone away now." Clara's fingers twitched against the tablecloth. "Should I tell the manager?" "No." Dante took his first sip of wine, the motion casual, controlled. Let him think he got away with it. but his mind was already 3 steps ahead. A photograph. Tonight, while he sat alone like a rejected teenager. Someone wanted proof of his humiliation, which meant someone had planned this entire evening. The blind date. The no-show. The public display of a Moretti being stood up. Isabella Rocci. Her family's name tasted like poison in his mouth. Clara started to stand, but Dante's hand moved across the table, not touching her, just hovering close enough to pause her movement. Stay, please. She sank back down, confusion flickering across her face. I don't understand what's happening. You just saved me from making tomorrow's gossip columns look even worse. He offered a tight smile. If that photo goes out showing me sitting alone, I'll look pathetic. But if it shows me having dinner with someone, having a conversation, maybe even laughing, it looks like you chose to be here, Clara finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. Exactly. Dante leaned back in his chair, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. So tell me something, Clara. What's a woman who whispers philosophy doing serving tables in a place like this? She laughed, the sound surprising them both. Philosophy? That's generous. I'm just trying to pay my brother's school fees. You have a brother? Jamal. He's 17. Smart kid. Scholarship student. Or he was, until the funding got pulled last month. The pain in her voice was fresh, recent. Now I'm picking up extra shifts wherever I can. Dante's jaw clenched. Scholarship funding didn't just disappear. Someone cut it. Someone always cut things in this city when they wanted to send a message or settle a score. The question was who and why. What school? Pemberton Academy. It's a private. I know what it is. Dante's mind spun through connections, names, board members. The Pemberton Academy Scholarship Fund was managed through a network of private donors. Most of them owed favors to families like his, or families like the Roxas. Clara's phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. What's wrong? It's Jamal. He says someone's been asking questions about him at school. About me. About where I work. Her hands trembled as she read the message again. Who would do that? Dante's blood went cold. Not from fear, but from the kind of rage that burned quiet and deadly. They'd involved an innocent kid. Crossed a line even his father's generation had respected. He stood up, pulling out his wallet and dropping $300 bills on the table. Listen to me very carefully. Go home. Don't work late tonight. Don't take any shortcuts. And Clara, he waited until she looked directly at him. Trust no one who offers you help. Not until you hear from me first. Hear from you? I don't even know. You will. He buttoned his suit jacket, the movement sharp and final. That whisper of yours, it just started something neither of us can walk away from now. He left without looking back, but he could feel her eyes on him as he walked through the restaurant. The man at the bar had already disappeared. Smart, but not smart enough. Dante stepped into the rain, pulling out his phone as his driver brought the car around. He dialed a number he hadn't called in months. Marco, I need to find out everything about a waitress named Clara. Last name unknown. Works at Vincenzo's. And Marco, he paused, watching the restaurant through the rain-streaked window. Find out who's been digging into her family. I want names by morning. As the car pulled away from the curb, Dante realized he was smiling. Not the cold smile he used in boardrooms or the empty one he wore at family dinners. This was something different, something dangerous. Someone had tried to break him tonight. Instead, they'd just given him a reason to fight back. Do you think Clara just made the biggest mistake of her life, or did she just save it? The envelope appeared 3 hours later. Clara found it tucked under the windshield wiper of her beat-up Honda, rain-soaked but sealed tight. No name, just her employee number written in sharp, precise handwriting. She looked around the empty parking lot, pulse hammering in her throat. Streetlights flickered overhead, casting shadows that moved like living things. Her fingers shook as she tore it open. $5,000. Crisp $100 bills that smelled like they'd just left a bank vault. And beneath them, a note on heavy cardstock. For your brother's tuition. Don't refuse it. D. Clara's breath caught. The money felt heavy in her hands, heavier than paper should feel. This wasn't kindness. This was control. This was a man who knew things about her life that she'd never told him. How did he know about Jamal's exact situation? How did he know where she parked? How long had he been watching? She stuffed the envelope in her purse and drove home on autopilot, her mind spinning through possibilities she didn't want to believe. When she pulled up to her apartment building, a black Maserati sat idling at the curb, engine running, headlights off. Dante stood beside it, hands in his pockets, looking like he'd been waiting for hours instead of minutes. Clara slammed her car door hard enough to make him flinch. She marched across the sidewalk, pulled the envelope from her purse, and threw it at his chest. It bounced off his suit jacket and landed at his feet. "I can't take this." Her voice cracked, but she didn't care. "I didn't help you for money. I didn't sit with you so you could turn me into some charity case you throw cash at when you're feeling guilty about your privilege." Dante didn't pick up the envelope. He just stood there, rain soaking through his expensive clothes, watching her with those dark eyes that saw too much. "I know," he said quietly. "That's why you're the only person I trust with it." The words hit her like a slap. Trust. From a man who probably trusted no one. She wanted to stay angry, needed to stay angry, but something in his voice made her pause. "How did you know about Jamal's scholarship?" she demanded. "Because I made 3 phone calls tonight and found out why it was really cut." Dante took a step closer, his voice dropping. "The Rachi family owns the fund that manages Pemberton scholarships. Your brother's funding wasn't eliminated because of budget cuts, Clara. It was eliminated because they're punishing loyalty." "What are you talking about?" "Loyalty to who?" "To people like me." He ran a hand through his wet hair, frustration breaking through his calm exterior. "Your landlord, Mrs. Chun, she's married to a man who used to work for my father. The Roxas found that connection, and they've been systematically destroying anyone even remotely tied to my family's network. Your brother's scholarship. Mrs. Chin's property taxes suddenly tripling. The bodega on the corner that just lost its liquor license." Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "That's insane. I don't even know you. I didn't know you before tonight. They don't care. To them, you're collateral damage. A loose thread they can pull to unravel everything my father built." Dante's hands curled into fists at his sides. "That photo the man took tonight, it was supposed to be ammunition. Proof that I'm weak, distracted, vulnerable. But now they have your face in that picture too." The rain fell harder, drumming against the pavement between them. Clara's mind raced through the implications, through the web of consequences she'd stumbled into by offering one moment of kindness. "So what do I do?" she whispered. Dante picked up the envelope from the ground, water dripping from the edges. He held it out to her again, but this time his eyes were different. Softer, almost pleading. "You take this money and you keep your head down. You stop picking up extra shifts. You go to work, you go home, you don't talk to anyone you don't know." And most importantly, he pressed the envelope into her hands, his fingers warm against hers despite the cold rain. "You let me fix this." "What?" Clara gripped the envelope but didn't pull away. "Why would you fix anything for me? You don't owe me anything. Because in a world full of people who want something from me, you sat down and offered something to me." His thumb brushed against her knuckles. The gesture so brief, she almost missed it. "That's worth more than $5,000. That's worth protecting." Clara's breath hitched. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the weight he carried in the set of his shoulders. This wasn't a monster. This was just a man who'd been told monsters were the only thing people like him could become. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Good. Fear keeps you alive." Dante stepped back, breaking the contact between them. "But don't let it make you stupid. If anyone approaches you, anyone asks questions, you call this number." He handed her a business card, plain white with just 10 digits printed in black ink. "Day or night. I don't care what time. You call." She tucked the card into her pocket, next to the envelope. "What are you going to do?" A smile crossed his face, but it wasn't kind. It was the smile of a man who'd just been given permission to do what he did best. "I'm going to remind the Roxas why they used to fear my father's name, and why they should fear mine even more." He got in his car without another word. The engine purred to life, and the Maserati disappeared down the street, taillights bleeding red into the rain-soaked night. Clara stood alone on the sidewalk, clutching $5,000 and a phone number that felt like a bomb in her pocket. She thought tonight was about helping a stranger feel less alone. She hadn't realized she was declaring war. Would you trust a stranger's money if it came with a target on your back? The man at the bar had a name, Vincent Calabrese. Dante learned this exactly 4 hours after leaving Clara's apartment, courtesy of Marco's network of informants who traded secrets like currency. Now Dante sat in his study, whiskey untouched, watching security footage from Vincenzo's restaurant on 3 different screens. Marco stood beside him, arms crossed, face grim. He's been tracking you for 3 weeks, boss. Always keeps his distance. Always uses a telephoto lens. This is the first time he got sloppy enough to be noticed. Marco tapped one screen where Vincent's face appeared in sharp focus. Worked for the Roxas. Mid-level enforcer. More muscle than brains. Which means he's not the architect. Dante rewound the footage to the moment Clara had spotted the camera flash. He's just the messenger. Isabella Rocci orchestrated the whole setup. The blind date, the public location, everything. Marco pulled up another file on his tablet. She was supposed to show up, actually. Plans changed last minute when her father told her to ghost you instead. Make it hurt more. Dante's jaw clenched. Isabella. They'd grown up in the same circles, attended the same private schools, smiled at each other across the same boardrooms. He'd thought she was different from her family. Apparently, he'd thought wrong. What about the girl? Clara. Marco's tone shifted, cautious. You sure about bringing her into this? I didn't bring her into anything. They did. Dante closed the laptop harder than necessary. The scholarship fund. When did the Roxas take it over? 6 months ago. They've been using it to map out your father's old connections. Anyone who ever took money from a Moretti-backed fund gets quietly cut off. It's psychological warfare. Make people think your family can't protect them anymore. And Clara's brother? Marco hesitated. Jamal Vance, 17, top of his class. Full ride to Pemberton Academy until September when his funding mysteriously dried up. The official reason was reallocated resources. The real reason was his landlord is married to Tommy Chun, who used to run security for your father's shipping operations. Dante stood up, pacing to the window. The city spread out below him, glittering and indifferent. Somewhere out there, Clara was probably lying awake, wondering if she'd made a mistake taking his money, wondering if helping him had just destroyed her life. Pull the Chun file. I want to know every pressure point the Roxas have been applying. Property taxes, business licenses, anything they've touched. He turned back to Marco. And give me a meeting with Isabella. Tomorrow. Somewhere public. Boss. Walking into a meeting with a woman who just humiliated you isn't weakness. It's strategy. Dante's voice went cold. She thinks she won tonight. Let her keep thinking that right up until I show her the video. Marco's eyebrows shot up. What video? The one Vincent took. Except we're going to edit it. Make it look like Isabella's plan failed worse than it did. Make it look like I had such a good time with my mysterious companion that I didn't even notice the chair across from me was empty. A slow smile spread across Marco's face. You're going to flip the narrative. I'm going to burn it down and build a new one. Dante grabbed his phone, scrolling through contacts. And then I'm going to make sure every family in this city knows the Roxas went after a 17-year-old kid to get to me. Let's see how much respect they command when everyone knows they target children. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Dante's pulse kicked up before he even read the message. They're outside my building. 3 men. They say they just want to talk. See. The whiskey glass shattered in his hand before he realized he'd squeezed it. Blood welled in his palm, but he barely felt it. Marco, get the car. Now. Boss, what? They're at Clara's apartment. Dante was already moving toward the door, grabbing his jacket, his keys, the gun he kept in his desk drawer. If anything happens to her, if they touch one hair on her head, I'm burning the Rocci empire to ash. Marco didn't argue. He just ran. They made it to Clara's building in 12 minutes, breaking every speed limit and running 2 red lights. Dante's phone stayed clutched in his hand, but Clara hadn't sent another message. Radio silence. The worst kind. When they screeched to a stop outside her apartment, the street was empty. No suspicious cars. No men in suits. Just quiet darkness and the hum of streetlights overhead. Dante took the stairs 3 at a time, Marco close behind. Clara's apartment was on the 3rd floor, door slightly ajar, lights spilling into the hallway. His heart stopped. He pushed the door open slowly, gun raised, every muscle coiled tight. The apartment was tiny, worn furniture and peeling paint, but neat. Clean. The kind of place where people lived carefully because they had to. Clara sat on the couch, phone in her lap, eyes red but dry. She looked up when he entered, and something like relief crossed her face. "They're gone," she said quietly. "They left 5 minutes ago." Dante lowered the gun, blood still dripping from his palm, onto her floor. "What do they want?" She held up a manila envelope, identical to the one he'd given her earlier. "They said to give you this. Said it's a gift from Isabella Rocci. Said," her voice cracked, "said to tell you that blind dates aren't the only thing she can make disappear." Dante crossed the room in 2 strides, took the envelope from her shaking hands, and ripped it open. Inside was a single photograph. Not from tonight. From 6 years ago. A photo of his father, Giancarlo Moretti, shaking hands with Thomas Chun. And in the background, barely visible, a teenage Clara serving drinks at some family function she probably didn't even remember attending. The message was clear. "We've known about her longer than you have. If someone proved they'd been watching you for years without you knowing, would you run or fight?" Clara watched Dante's face turn to stone as he stared at the photograph. Whatever he saw there drained the color from his features, replaced it with something harder, colder. The man who'd stood in the rain, offering her protection, had vanished. In his place stood someone carved from marble and rage. "You need to tell me the truth." Clara's voice came out steadier than she felt. "All of it. No more cryptic warnings or vague threats. If I'm already in this, I deserve to know what this actually is." Dante set the photo on her coffee table, blood from his cut palm smearing the edge. He didn't seem to notice or care. 6 years ago, you worked a private event. Probably one of dozens you've done. Rich people, expensive suits, champagne you couldn't afford to drink. I've worked hundreds of events like that. This one was different. This one was a meeting between my father and several business associates. Associates who are either dead now or working for families like the Roxas. He tapped the photo. You were 17, serving drinks. Invisible to everyone in that room, except apparently the people who take pictures of invisible things. Clara's stomach dropped. She remembered that night, vaguely, the way you remember background noise. I was working for a catering company, just summer money before college, and you probably signed an NDA, standard practice for high-profile events. Dante started pacing, the movement predatory, which means they have your signature, your information, proof you were there. If they wanted to, they could spin a story that you've been connected to my family for years. That tonight wasn't random kindness. That you're an asset, a plant. But I'm not. Clara stood up, anger cutting through her fear. I didn't even know who you were until tonight. I don't care about your family history or your business or whatever the Roxas think they can prove. I know that. You know that. But the truth doesn't matter when someone controls the narrative. Dante stopped pacing, turned to face her fully. They're trying to paint you as leverage, something they can use against me. Someone I'll protect because I'm either using you or because. He cut himself off, jaw clenching. Because what? Clara pressed. Because I'm stupid enough to care about someone after one conversation. The admission came out bitter, angry. That's what they're betting on. That I'll make emotional decisions instead of strategic ones. Clara moved closer, close enough to see the exhaustion etched into his face, the weight of a legacy he'd never asked for but couldn't escape. What did the men say when they were here? You didn't ask. Dante's eyes sharpened. What exactly did they say? They said Isabella Rocci wants to meet with you. Tomorrow night. Same restaurant as tonight. 8 o'clock. Clara swallowed hard, remembering the casual menace in their voices. They said you can bring your mysterious companion if you want. Said it might make the evening more interesting. They want you there. Dante's hands curled into fists. They want to see if I'll expose you further or try to protect you. Either way, they win. Then don't go. Clara grabbed his arm, felt the tension coiled beneath his sleeve. Ignore them. Let this whole thing die. It won't die. That's not how this works. He looked down at her hand on his arm, and something shifted in his expression. They already involved your brother. They already proved they know where you live, where you work, where you've been for the last 6 years. Walking away doesn't make you safer. It just makes you easier to destroy when I'm not looking. The apartment felt too small suddenly, walls closing in with the weight of decisions Clara had no idea how to make. So what do I do? Dante gently removed her hand from his arm, but didn't let go. He held it between both of his, careful of his cut palm. You have two choices. One, you take that $5,000, get on a bus tomorrow, and disappear. I'll make sure your brother's scholarship gets reinstated through a different fund. You'll never hear from me or the Roxas again. And the second choice. His grip tightened almost imperceptibly. You trust me. You come to that dinner tomorrow night. You sit across from the woman who tried to humiliate me, and you don't flinch. You let them see that their intimidation didn't work. And then you let me handle what comes after. Handle how? A dark smile crossed his face. I'm very good at making problems disappear, Clara. The legal kind. The permanent kind. The kind where people who threaten innocent kids suddenly find their empires crumbling around them. Clara should have been terrified, should have taken the money and run. But something in her refused to give these people the satisfaction of watching her scatter like prey. Jamal hadn't done anything wrong. She hadn't done anything wrong. And she was tired of living in a world where doing nothing wrong still made you a target. I'll go to the dinner, she heard herself say. But I have conditions. Dante's eyebrows rose. You're negotiating with me? You said I'm the only person you trust. That means I have leverage. Clara pulled her hand free, crossed her arms. Condition 1. You don't lie to me. About anything. I don't care how ugly the truth is. Condition 2. Nothing happens to my brother. I don't care what it costs. He stays safe. Agreed. What's condition 3? Clara met his eyes, saw her reflection in them, small and fierce. When this is over, when the Roxas are handled or destroyed, or whatever you're planning, you let me walk away. No strings. No debt. No guilt about leaving you to whatever comes next. The silence stretched between them, heavy with things neither of them could say. Finally, Dante nodded. Deal. But Clara, he moved toward the door, Marco's shadow already visible in the hallway. When tomorrow night comes and you're sitting across from Isabella Rocci, remember something. She orchestrated your humiliation too. Every threat to your brother, every man who showed up at your door, that all came from her. So when you're deciding how to feel about what I'm going to do to her family, remember that she struck first. He left before she could respond, footsteps fading down the stairwell. Clara locked the door behind him, hands shaking, and sank back onto the couch. The photograph of her teenage self stared up from the coffee table, a ghost of a girl who'd served champagne and never imagined it would lead here. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but she knew who it was. We're something that makes you feel dangerous. Tomorrow, we're not playing defense anymore. D. Clara looked at the $5,000 still sitting on her kitchen counter, the business card with 10 digits, the photograph proving she'd been a target before she even knew the game existed. She thought about running, about taking Jamal and disappearing into some small town where names like Moretti and Rocci meant nothing. But then she thought about those men in her apartment, the casual way they'd threatened everything she loved, the smile in their voices when they talked about making things disappear. She picked up her phone and typed back, I'll be ready. But Dante, when you said you're good at making problems disappear, did you mean that literally? The response came seconds later. Come to dinner and find out. Will Clara survive the dinner with the woman who wants to destroy her? Or is she walking into a trap even Dante can't control? The letter arrived at noon, slipped under Clara's apartment door while she was checking on Jamal at school. She found it when she got back, crisp white envelope with embossed gold lettering. No postage. Hand-delivered. Her name written in elegant script that belonged in museums, not on the doorstep of a cramped apartment in Brooklyn. Inside, a single card on heavy stock that cost more than her weekly groceries. Your brother's scholarship has been reinstated. Full funding through graduation. Consider it a gesture of goodwill. We'll look forward to seeing you tonight. Isabella Rocci. Clara's hands went numb. She read it 3 times, each word burning itself in her brain. This wasn't kindness. This was bait. A hook wrapped in silk and dipped in poison. Her phone rang. Dante's number. Did you get it? His voice was tight, controlled fury barely leashed. How did you know? Because I just got one too. Except mine's an invitation to watch a video of your brother walking home from school yesterday. Exact route, exact timing, complete with timestamps. Papers rustled in the background. They're not even pretending anymore. This is a direct threat. Clara's legs gave out. She sat hard on the floor, back against the door. They filmed Jamal. They want us to know they can reach him anytime they want. That reinstating his scholarship isn't mercy, it's ownership. Dante's breathing was harsh. Clara, I need you to listen very carefully. Pack a bag. Not everything, just enough for a few days. Marco's coming to get you in 30 minutes. What? No, I'm not running. You're not running. You're regrouping. There's a difference. His tone shifted, almost gentle. The dinner tonight, it's not just dinner anymore. It's a declaration of war. And I need to know your brother is somewhere safe before I start that war. Clara pressed her palm against her forehead, trying to think through the panic. Where would he go? My family has a house upstate. Private security, no public records connecting it to the Moretti name. He'll have everything he needs. Phone, internet, food, space to study. He won't even know anything's wrong if we do this right. And what do I tell him? That he's going on a surprise vacation in the middle of the school week. Tell him the truth. That someone's trying to use him to hurt you, and you need him safe while you fix it. Dante paused. He's 17, Clara. Old enough to understand that sometimes the world isn't fair, and sometimes the people who love us have to make hard choices to protect us. She closed her eyes, hating every word because they were all true. I want to talk to him first, face to face, before Marco takes him anywhere. Done. But Clara, after you talk to him, after he's safe, I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to get angry. His voice dropped low, deadly serious. Not scared, not anxious, angry. Because tonight when we walk into that restaurant, Isabella Racci is going to expect you to be terrified. She's going to expect you to flinch every time she smiles. And the moment she sees that fear, she wins. Clara thought about the men who'd stood in her apartment, casual and threatening. Thought about Isabella orchestrating Jamal's scholarship being cut, then reinstating it like she was playing with dolls instead of real lives. Thought about the photo of her teenage self, proof she'd been watched and cataloged and filed away for future use. The fear started shifting into something sharper, hotter. What do I wear to a war? She asked quietly. Dante's answering smile was audible. Marco's bringing options. But Clara, whatever you choose, make sure it's something you can fight in, just in case talking doesn't work. 2 hours later, Clara stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress was simple, black, expensive in a way that didn't scream but whispered. Marco had brought 3 options. She'd chosen the one that made her look like she belonged in rooms where people decided other people's fates. Jamal was safe. She'd watched him get into Marco's car, confusion and worry on his young face, but also trust. Trust that his sister knew what she was doing. Trust she desperately hoped she deserved. Now it was time to prove she did. Her phone buzzed. Dante's text was brief. Car's outside. Remember, you're not the help tonight. You're the threat they didn't see coming. Clara grabbed her purse, checked her reflection one last time, and walked out of her apartment. The woman who left wasn't the same woman who'd served champagne to rich strangers. This woman had looked men in the eye and refused to break. This woman had negotiated terms with someone powerful enough to end her with a phone call. This woman was about to have dinner with the enemy and smile while doing it. The black sedan waiting at the curb had tinted windows and an engine that purred like contained thunder. The driver opened the door without a word. Clara slid inside and found Dante waiting, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent. He looked at her for a long moment, something flickering in his dark eyes that might have been approval or might have been concern. You look dangerous, he said finally. Good. That's what you asked for. The restaurant appeared too quickly, amber light spilling onto wet pavement. Rain again, always rain in this city when things went wrong. Dante's hand found hers as they walked toward the entrance. his grip firm and warm and steadying. "Last chance to walk away," he murmured. Clara squeezed back. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." They stepped inside, and every head in the restaurant turned. Not because they were loud or obvious, but because some part of the room's collective consciousness recognized predators when they entered. The maitre d' approached, nervous smile in place. "Mr. Moretti, Miss Vance. Miss Rachi is already seated." Clara's heart hammered against her ribs, but her face stayed calm. They followed the maitre d' through the dining room, past tables full of people who'd come here for romance or business, never knowing they were about to witness something else entirely. Isabella Rachi sat in the same corner booth where Dante had waited alone 24 hours ago. She was beautiful in the calculated way of women who'd never had to worry about money or safety. Dark hair, sharp cheekbones smiled like a cut glass. "Dante." Isabella's voice dripped honey and venom. "And you must be Clara, the mysterious companion everyone's been talking about." Clara slid into the booth across from her, Dante settling beside Clara with the easy confidence of someone who owned the room. "Isabella, thank you for the invitation." "Oh, this isn't an invitation." Isabella's smile widened. "This is a courtesy, a chance to explain how things work before anyone gets hurt unnecessarily." Dante leaned back, completely relaxed. "And how do things work, Isabella?" "Simple. You walk away from your father's old connections. Stop trying to rebuild what's already dead. In return, I guarantee the safety of everyone you care about, including," her eyes flicked to Clara, "your new friend and her family." Clara felt Dante tense beside her, but his expression never changed. "And if I don't?" Isabella pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and turned it to face them. Video footage. Jamal's school. Different angles, different days. A catalog of vulnerability. Then I stopped being polite about removing obstacles. Will Dante explode and ruin everything? But does he have a plan that Isabella never saw coming? Dante watched the video for exactly 3 seconds before he started laughing. Not nervous laughter. Not forced bravado. Real, genuine amusement that echoed through the quiet restaurant and made Isabella's smile falter. "Something funny?" Ice crept in her voice. "Very." Dante pulled out his own phone, tapped twice, and set on the table between them. "You spent weeks documenting a kid's walk to school. Very thorough. Very creepy. But Isabella, did you happen to document your own men while they were doing it?" He pressed play. The screen showed Vincent Calabrese, the man from the bar, sitting in a car across from Pemberton Academy. Crystal clear footage of him photographing Jamal. Timestamp, license plate, everything. But that wasn't what made Isabella's face go pale. The second clip showed 2 other men, Rachi soldiers Clara recognized from her apartment, having a conversation in what they clearly thought was a private location. Their voices came through perfectly clear. "Boss says we grab the kid if Moretti doesn't back down." "What about the sister?" "Whatever sends the message. Rachi doesn't care about collateral anymore." Isabella's hand shot out, fingers hovering over Dante's phone like she wanted to smash it. "Where did you get that?" "From the same surveillance system your family uses to watch my people." Funny thing about cameras, Isabella, once you install enough of them around the city, you forget other people can access them too. Dante's smile was all teeth. "I have 17 more clips like this. Different locations, different soldiers, all of them discussing illegal activities on film. Kidnapping, extortion. 2 of your guys even talk about that property fire in Queens last month. The one that killed 3 people. Remember that." The restaurant felt 20 degrees colder. Clara watched Isabella's calculated composure crack, revealing something desperate underneath. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Dante leaned forward, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I also have financial records showing how your family scholarship fund isn't actually funding scholarships. It's a money laundering operation. Every dollar that should be going to kids like Jamal is getting funneled through shell companies in the Caymans. The IRS would be very interested in those records." Isabella's jaw clenched. "If you had any of that, you'd have used it already." "I was going to. This morning. Had a meeting scheduled with a federal prosecutor, everything printed and ready to go." Dante sat back, casual again. "But then I thought, Maybe Isabella didn't know what her father was doing. Maybe she's not actually the monster orchestrating all of this. Maybe she's just following orders. Something flickered in Isabella's eyes. Not quite hope, but close. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm giving you a choice your father never gave anyone else. You have 48 hours to transfer control of the scholarship fund to an independent board. Real oversight, real accountability. You reinstate every scholarship that was cut in the last year. Every single one. And you make a very generous, anonymous donation to cover any gap in funding. And if I do this, then the videos never see daylight. The financial records disappear, and your family's reputation stays intact. Dante's expression hardened. But Isabella, if one more person connected to me gets threatened, if one more kid loses funding, if I even hear your name whispered in the same sentence as intimidation, I will bury your entire empire so deep you'll need archaeologists to find it. Clara had been silent through the entire exchange, watching this chess game play out in real time. Now she spoke, her voice steady and clear. You sent men to my home. You terrorized my brother. You thought you could use us to control him. She met Isabella's eyes directly. Do you know what that makes you? Isabella's mouth opened, but no words came out. It makes you exactly what people think you are. A bully with money who's never been told no. Clara didn't blink, didn't look away. But here's what you didn't count on. I've been scared my whole life. Scared of losing my brother. Scared of not having enough money. Scared of people like you who think the world belongs to them. And you know what I learned? What? Isabella's voice was barely audible. Fear doesn't kill you. It teaches you. And I learned that bullies only win if you give them permission to. Clara stood up, Dante rising beside her. You don't have our permission anymore. They turned to leave, but Dante paused, looking back over his shoulder. Oh, and Isabella? That video of me sitting alone the other night, the one your photographer took? I had Marco edit it. Made it look like I was having the time of my life. Posted it on my private social media this morning with a very sweet caption about unexpected connections. It's already been shared 400 times. So thank you for the publicity. Isabella's face went from pale to red. You can't just. 48 hours. Dante's voice cut through her protest like a blade. After that, I stopped being nice. They walked out of the restaurant into the rain, and Clara felt something shift in her chest. Not relief, not yet, but something close. The weight of fear loosening its grip just slightly. Did we just win? She asked as they reached the car. Dante opened the door for her, water dripping from his hair. We won the first round. But Isabella's going to talk to her father tonight, and he's not going to take this well. What do you think he'll do? Dante's expression went grim. Everything I just threatened to do to them, he's going to try to do to us first, which is why we need to move fast. They got in the car, and Dante immediately pulled out his phone, dialing. Marco, it's time. Send everything to the prosecutor. Don't wait for the 48 hours. And Marco, make sure Clara's brother stays put. Things are about to get messy. Clara's stomach dropped. I thought you were giving her a chance. I was. But she's not the one making decisions in her family. Her father is. And men like Antonio Rocci don't negotiate. They retaliate. Dante looked at her, regret and determination warring in his eyes. I'm sorry. I know I said we'd wait. But I can't risk your safety on the hope that Isabella grows a conscience. So the videos, the financial records, all of it goes public. By morning, every news outlet in New York will have the story. By noon, the federal investigation will be announced. By dinner tomorrow, the Rocci family will be too busy dealing with their own destruction to worry about us. Clara should have felt triumphant. This was justice, wasn't it? The powerful finally facing consequences for their actions. But all she felt was tired and scared and wondering when the retaliation would come. What happens to us after tomorrow? She asked quietly. Dante reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. That depends. Are you still planning to walk away when this is over? The question hung between them, heavy with implications Clara wasn't ready to examine. 24 hours ago, she'd been a waitress trying to pay her brother's school fees. Now she was sitting in an expensive car, wearing an expensive dress, holding hands with a man who'd just declared war on one of New York's most dangerous families. Ask me again when we're both still alive, she said. Dante's laugh was short, sharp. Deal. The car pulled away from the restaurant, taillights reflecting red on wet pavement. Behind them, through the rain-streaked window, Clara could see Isabella Rocci still sitting in that corner booth. Phone pressed to her ear, face twisted with rage. The war had started, and Clara had just realized she'd stopped being a bystander the moment she'd whispered those words to a lonely man in a restaurant. Sometimes protection doesn't feel like safety. Sometimes it feels like choosing to stand when running would be easier. She just hoped they'd both survive the choice. What happens when the most dangerous family in New York realizes they've lost control? The warehouse smelled like rust and broken promises. Clara woke up with her head pounding and zip ties cutting in her wrists. Concrete floor, metal walls, single bare bulb swinging overhead. Every breath tasted like copper and fear. She'd been walking to her car after a shift, just before dawn. The restaurant needed her for inventory. Normal day, normal routine. Then a van, rough hands, something pressed over her mouth that smelled like chemicals and midnight. Now this. Footsteps echoed in the dark space beyond the light. Two men emerged, faces she didn't recognize but tactics she did. Rocci soldiers, younger than the ones who'd come to her apartment, which meant hungrier, more desperate to prove themselves. She's awake. The taller one nudged her boot with his foot. Boss is going to want to know. Think Moretti will actually come for her. The second one sounded doubtful. She's just some waitress he knew for like a day. Clara's mind spun through options, through possibilities. How long had she been unconscious? Hours? Days? Did Dante even know she was missing yet? Her phone was gone, purse gone, everything that could have helped gone. Doesn't matter if he comes. The tall one crouched down, getting in her face. What matters is that we send a message. Moretti thinks he can threaten the Rocci family? We show him what happens to people he cares about. Clara spat in his face. The slap came fast, snapping her head to the side. She tasted blood, felt her lips split, but she also felt something else. That anger Dante had told her to find. That rage at being treated like an object, a tool, a message instead of a person. You made a mistake, she said quietly. The tall one wiped his face, eyes narrowed. What was that? I said you made a mistake. Clara met his gaze straight on. You think Dante's going to negotiate for me? You think he's going to back down because you grabbed some woman he barely knows? That's exactly what we think. Clara smiled, blood on her teeth. Then you don't know him at all. He doesn't negotiate. He doesn't back down. And he definitely doesn't forgive people who threaten what's his. The second man shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should call the boss. Get instructions. Instructions for what? She's already here. Damage is done. The tall one stood up, pulled out his phone. But yeah, let's check in. Make sure Moretti knows we have her. They moved to the far side of the warehouse, voices dropping to murmurs. Clara worked at the zip ties, twisting her wrists, feeling for weak points. The plastic bit into her skin, drawing blood, but she didn't stop. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford right now. Her phone might be gone, but she'd learned something in the last 48 hours. She'd learned that being overlooked was a weapon. That people underestimated quiet women who served them drinks and cleared their plates. That invisibility could become invincibility if you were smart about it. The zip ties gave slightly. Not enough to break free, but enough to keep hope alive. The warehouse door exploded inward with a sound like thunder. The two men spun around, hands reaching for weapons that weren't quite drawn yet. Dante stood in the doorway, backlit by morning sun, looking like vengeance dressed in expensive fabric. Marco flanked him, along with 3 other men Clara didn't recognize. No guns drawn, no shouting, just presence, cold and absolute. You have 10 seconds to walk out of here. Dante's voice could have frozen fire. After that, you don't walk anywhere ever again. The tall one tried to laugh, tried to project confidence. You're outnumbered, Moretti. We got 6 more guys in the next room. You really want to do this? I said 10 seconds. You've used 3 arguing. Dante started walking forward, each step measured, controlled. 7 seconds left. Boss said, your boss is currently being arrested by federal agents at his home in Staten Island. The charges include racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and about 17 other felonies that will keep him in prison until he dies. Dante stopped 10 feet away. For seconds, both men looked at each other, uncertainty replacing bravado. The second one dropped his weapon first. We were just following orders. I don't care. 2 seconds. They ran, scrambled past Dante and his men like rabbits fleeing wolves. The warehouse door slammed shut behind them, leaving silence in their wake. Dante crossed the remaining distance in 3 strides, dropped to his knees beside Clara, and pulled out a knife. The zip ties fell away. His hands were gentle as he checked her face, her wrists, making sure nothing was broken beyond her split lip. "I'm okay," she whispered. "You're bleeding." "I'm okay." She said it firmer this time, making him believe it. "How did you find me?" "Your car has a tracker. Standard security measure Marco, installed yesterday. The moment you deviated from your normal route, alarms went off." Dante helped her stand, supporting her weight when her legs wobbled. "We've been tracking this location for the last 3 hours, waiting for the right moment to move." Clara leaned against him, exhaustion hitting all at once. "You said Antonio Rocci was arrested?" "At 4 this morning, along with 6 of his senior people. The evidence we gave to the prosecutors was even worse than we thought. They found connections to murders, disappearances, corruption cases going back 15 years. Dante's arm tightened around her waist. "The Rocci empire doesn't exist anymore, Clara. It's done." She should have felt relieved, should have felt victorious. But all she felt was hollow, worn down to nothing by fear and adrenaline and the weight of everything that had happened in 3 impossible days. What about Isabella? She made a deal, testified against her father in exchange for immunity. She's cooperating fully with the investigation. Dante guided her toward the door, Marco clearing the path ahead. She might actually get a chance to be something other than her family name now. The morning sun hurt Clara's eyes after the darkness of the warehouse. She blinked against the brightness, let Dante help her into the car, watched the warehouse disappear behind them like a bad dream finally ending. "You came for me," she said as they drove through streets waking up to a normal day. Dante looked at her, and something in his expression made her chest tighten. "Did you really think I wouldn't? I thought maybe you'd make a strategic decision. That one waitress wasn't worth risking everything for." "You're not just a waitress. You haven't been since the moment you sat down at my table and refused to see me as just a name." His hand found hers again, familiar now, steadying. "And Clara, if you think I'd ever choose strategy over keeping you safe, then you really don't know me at all." The car pulled up to her apartment building. Morning light painted everything gold and gentle. Somewhere upstate, Jamal was probably waking up, safe and unaware of how close things had come to disaster. Clara turned to Dante, this man who'd upended her entire world in 72 hours. "You know that condition I had? The one about letting me walk away when this was over? I remember. I'm revoking it." Dante's breath caught. "What?" "I'm revoking it." Clara reached up, cupped his face with her hand, felt the tension in his jaw ease slightly. "Because I think I might be exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I think you might be too." He kissed her then, soft and careful like she was something precious that might break. And maybe she was. Maybe they both were. But broken things could be strong if they chose to be. When they finally pulled apart, Dante was smiling. A real smile. The kind Clara suspected he hadn't worn in years. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we get your brother home. Now we make sure the scholarship fund actually helps kids instead of criminals. Now we rebuild things the right way." He paused. "And now I take you to breakfast because you've been kidnapped and assaulted and you probably deserve pancakes." Clara laughed, the sound surprising her. Pancakes sound perfect. They got out of the car together, morning breaking over a city that didn't know it had just witnessed something extraordinary. A mafia heir who'd learned compassion could be stronger than cruelty. A waitress who discovered her own voice was louder than any threat. 2 people who'd found each other in the wreckage and chose to build something better. But as they walked toward the diner on the corner, Clara's phone buzzed in Dante's jacket pocket where Marco had stored it. A text from an unknown number. 3 words that made Dante's expression go cold. "This isn't over. When revenge comes from the shadows, How do you fight what you can't see? The warehouse was supposed to be empty. That's what the intelligence said. What Marco's sources confirmed. Old shipping facility on the waterfront, abandoned for 5 years. Perfect place to stash a hostage until the family paying for the kidnapping could negotiate terms. Except there was no negotiation happening. Because the men who'd taken Clara 3 days after the Rachi arrests weren't working for the Roxas. They were working for someone worse. Dante approached the warehouse at midnight. Marco and 4 others spread out around the perimeter. No sirens. No backup. Just the kind of justice that happened in shadows when the law moved too slowly. His phone had been buzzing nonstop since Clara disappeared from the diner parking lot 6 hours ago. Jamal calling, panicked and helpless. The restaurant manager asking if she was sick. Even Isabella Rachi, from whatever safe house the feds had her in, sending a text that just said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know." None of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was the video he'd received 2 hours ago. Clara tied to a chair, face bruised, lip bleeding again. And behind her, a man Dante recognized from his father's old files. Victor Castellano, someone who should have been dead. The warehouse door hung open, invitation or trap. Dante didn't care which. He stepped inside, gun drawn, every sense heightened. The space was bigger than he expected, metal scaffolding rising into darkness, stacks of rotting crates creating a maze of shadows. Somewhere in here, Clara was waiting. Somewhere in here, a ghost from his father's past was about to learn that sons remembered debts better than their fathers ever did. More Eddie. The voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "Glad you can make it. We have so much to discuss." "Where is she, Victor?" Dante kept moving, using crates for cover, eyes scanning for movement. "Safe. For now. But that depends entirely on whether you're willing to listen to reason." Footsteps up high on the scaffolding. Victor was moving, staying out of reach. "Your father took something from me 20 years ago. I think it's time the Moretti family paid that debt. My father's dead. Whatever you think he owed you died with him." "Did it?" "Because I'm looking at his legacy standing in my warehouse. I'm looking at the son who inherited everything I should have had." Victor's shadow appeared on the scaffolding, 60 feet up, standing at the railing. "Your father promised me a partnership. Instead, he cut me out, took my connections, my territory, my respect, left me with nothing." Dante moved closer to the scaffolding, calculating angles, distances. "So you wait 20 years and kidnap an innocent woman? That's your revenge." "She's not innocent. She's leverage. The one thing you actually care about more than your father's empire." Victor leaned over the railing, face finally visible in the dim light. He'd aged badly, life etched in hard lines and bitter angles. "I did my research, Dante. I know you don't care about money or territory or any of the things your father died protecting. But this girl, this waitress who whispered pretty words to you when you were feeling sorry for yourself, she's different. You'd burn the whole city down to keep her safe." "You're right." Dante's voice went deadly quiet. "So let her go, and I'll give you whatever you want. What I want is for you to feel what I felt. Abandoned, humiliated, stripped of everything you thought was yours." Victor pulled out a phone, held it up. "I have men at your upstate property right now. The one where you're hiding Clara's brother. 17 years old, isn't he? Smart kid. Would hate for something to happen to him." Dante's blood froze. Jamal. He'd promised Clara her brother would stay safe. He'd sworn nothing would touch him. "Don't." The word came out strangled. "Then get on your knees." Victor's smile was vicious. "Get on your knees, put your gun down, and beg me for mercy. Beg me the way I had to beg your father before he destroyed my life. Do that, and maybe I'll let both of them live." Dante's mind raced through options, through possibilities. Marco was outside, but backup was minutes away. Too long. Victor's thumb hovered over the phone screen. One call, and Jamal died. One wrong move, and Clara died. He started to kneel, gun lowering. "Stop." Clara's voice cut through the warehouse, strong and clear. "Dante, don't you dare." She appeared from behind a stack of crates, hands still bound, blood on her face, but walking on her own. 2 men flanked her, guns drawn, but she wasn't looking at them. She was looking at Dante with fury in her eyes. "Don't you dare kneel for him. Don't you dare give him what he wants. She turned to Victor, 60 feet above, but close enough to hear every word. You want revenge? Fine, take it. But understand something first. What's that? Victor's smile widened. The moment you hurt me or Jamal, you stop being Dante's problem. Clara's voice didn't waver. You become mine. And I've learned something these last few days. I've learned that the people everyone underestimates are the most dangerous ones. Because we have nothing left to lose. She twisted suddenly, drove her elbow into the stomach of the man beside her, and dropped as his gun went off. The shot went wide, sparking off metal scaffolding. The second man lunged for her, but Clara was already moving, smaller and faster than he expected. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Dante fired twice, dropping the second man before he could reach Clara. Marco and his team burst through side entrances, flashlights cutting through darkness. Victor screamed orders from above, but his men were already falling, already realizing they'd miscalculated badly. Dante reached Clara in 3 seconds, cut the zip ties with his knife, pulled her close. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Jamal. Safe. Victor was bluffing. Our security called 5 minutes ago. Nobody's touched the upstate house. He looked up at the scaffolding where Victor was scrambling for the exit stairs. Stay here. Dante. Stay here. He kissed her forehead, fierce and quick. This ends tonight. He took the scaffolding stairs 3 at a time, metal groaning under his weight. Victor was fast, but Dante was faster, driven by 3 days of fear and fury, finally finding a target. They met on the top platform, 60 feet above concrete, with only a thin railing between them and death. You can't kill me. Victor backed toward the edge. I have insurance. Documents. If I disappear, they go public. Everything your father did. Everything you're doing now. I don't care. Dante kept advancing. You put your hands on someone I love. You threaten a kid who never hurt anyone. Whatever documents you have, whatever you think you know, it's not enough to save you. Love. Victor laughed, high and desperate. You've known her for days. That's not love. That's obsession. That's you being weak, just like your father was weak. My father was weak because he destroyed people like you instead of helping them. Because he chose fear over fairness. Dante stopped 3 feet away. I'm not making that mistake. I'm destroying you because you earned it. Victor's back hit the railing. Below them, Marco's team had secured the warehouse. Clara stood watching, face tilted up, trust in her eyes that Dante still didn't understand but was starting to believe he deserved. Last chance, Victor. Where are the documents? They don't exist. The confession came out broken. I had nothing. I've had nothing for 20 years. This was my last play, my last chance to matter. Dante felt something twist in his chest. Not pity exactly, but recognition. Understanding what it meant to be desperate enough to destroy yourself trying to hurt someone else. Then I'm giving you what my father never did. Dante stepped back, lowered his gun. A choice. You could disappear tonight. Leave New York, leave this life, start over somewhere nobody knows your name. Or you can keep fighting, keep trying for revenge that will never satisfy you. And I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison. Victor stared at him, shock replacing rage. Why? Because someone once whispered to me that being left behind sometimes means being protected from what would destroy you. Dante glanced down at Clara, and I'm starting to think she was right. 3 months later, Clara stood in the same restaurant where everything began. But tonight, the tables were full of kids in scholarship jackets, families celebrating students who'd just received funding for college. The Moretti Vance Foundation had officially launched, named for 2 families that shouldn't have fit together, but did. Jamal gave a speech about second chances and people who helped when they didn't have to. Clara watched from the back, Dante's hand in hers, and felt something close to peace settle in her chest. You're crying. Dante brushed a thumb across her cheek. Happy tears. There's a difference. Is there? His smile was soft, the kind he saved only for her now. Because I'm pretty sure I've never seen happy tears before. That's because you spent too long around people who forgot how to be happy. Clara turned to face him fully. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for teaching me how. They left before the speeches ended, walking out into a night that felt full of possibility instead of danger. The city glittered around them, indifferent to their story but made better by it anyway. "What do you want to do now?" Clara asked. Dante considered, looking up at buildings that had once felt like prisons and now just looked like buildings. "I want pancakes. And I want to hear you tell me again how you're exactly where you're supposed to be." "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Again, Clara laughed, the sound bright and unburdened. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, Dante Moretti. And so are you." They walked toward the Chapter 10. The diner on Lexington Avenue never closed, which made it the perfect place for impossible conversations at 3 in the morning. Clara sat across from Dante in a worn leather booth, pancakes growing cold between them, watching him trace patterns in spilled syrup with his fork. 6 months had passed since the warehouse. 6 months of rebuilding, of testifying, of learning how to exist in a world where the threats had shifted from external to internal. "You're thinking too loud." She reached across the table, stilled his hand. "Talk to me." Dante looked up, exhaustion carved into his features. Marco called earlier. Isabella's testimony secured the last conviction. Every member of the Rachi senior leadership is going away for decades. "That's good news." "It is." He set down his fork. "So why does it feel like we're waiting for the other shoe to drop?" Clara understood. They'd been living on borrowed time, constantly looking over their shoulders, waiting for the next threat to materialize. But maybe that was the real cost of violence, even justified violence. It taught you to never fully relax. "Because we forgot how to feel safe," she said quietly. "We forgot that sometimes the war actually ends." Does it end? Or does it just pause? Dante's eyes held shadows she recognized now, the kind that came from seeing too much too young. Victor disappeared to Mexico. The Roxas are in prison. But there are always others, Clara. Always someone waiting to take what they think belongs to them. Then let them wait. Clara squeezed his hand. Let them waste their lives planning revenge while we actually live ours. A small smile tugged at his mouth. "When did you get so wise?" "Somewhere between getting kidnapped twice and realizing the scariest man in New York makes really terrible pancake choices." She gestured at his plate where chocolate chip pancakes sat untouched. "Seriously, who orders chocolate chips at 3 in the morning? Someone who's stress eating and doesn't care about judgment." "I'm not judging. I'm concerned about your taste buds." The moment broke something in him, some final wall crumbling. Dante laughed, real and unguarded, the sound filling the empty diner. The waitress refilling coffee at the counter looked over, startled, like she'd witnessed something rare. Maybe she had. "I got an offer today," Dante said when the laughter faded. "From the city. They want me to consult on reforming how scholarship programs are monitored. Make sure what happened with the Roxas never happens again." Clara's pulse quickened. "That's incredible. Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. It means going legitimate. Completely. No more connections to my father's world. No more using old networks to solve problems. Just policy meetings and paperwork and bureaucracy." He met her eyes. "It means becoming someone different than who I was raised to be. And that scares you." "Terrifies me." The admission came out raw. "What if I'm not good at being normal? What if the only thing I know how to do is operate in shadows?" Clara thought about the question, about the man sitting across from her who'd stormed warehouses and dismantled empires, but still didn't know if he deserved peace. She thought about herself 6 months ago, invisible and overlooked, convinced her only value was in staying quiet and small. "You know what I learned?" she said finally. "Normal is just a story we tell ourselves about who we're supposed to be. But the truth is, we get to choose. Every single day, we get to choose what kind of person we become. And what if I choose wrong? Then you choose again tomorrow." She leaned forward, holding his gaze. "Dante, you spent 6 months building a foundation that's already changed 40 kids' lives. You testified against your own father's associates to make sure justice actually happened. You learned how to feel things besides anger and control. Those aren't the actions of someone who doesn't know how to be good." His eyes glistened, tears threatening to fall for the first time since she'd known him. "I'm scared of losing you. Scared that once the danger is gone, Once I'm just some consultant in meetings instead of someone powerful, you'll realize you don't need me anymore." The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in Clara's chest. She stood up, slid into his side of the booth, and wrapped her arms around him. He buried his face in her shoulder, and she felt the tension drain from his body like poison leaving a wound. "You never needed to be powerful for me to choose you," she whispered. "I chose you when you were sitting alone in a restaurant, humiliated and hurting. I chose you when you could have destroyed the Roxas, but gave Isabella a chance to be different. I chose you when you knelt in that warehouse, ready to sacrifice everything for my brother." She pulled back, cupped his face in her hands. "I didn't fall in love with your power, Dante. I fell in love with your heart." The tears fell then, silent and cleansing. "Say that again." "Which part?" "The love part." Clara smiled. "I love you. Not the version of you that everyone fears. Not the heir to an empire or the man with dangerous connections. Just you. The person who orders terrible pancakes and stress eats at 3 in the morning and is brave enough to build something better than what came before." He kissed her then, soft and desperate, and full of promises they were both still learning how to keep. The waitress pretended not to notice, refilling coffee cups that didn't need refilling, giving them the privacy moments like this deserved. When they finally pulled apart, Dante's expression had shifted. The shadows were still there, would probably always be there, but something else lived alongside them now. Hope, maybe, or at least the possibility of it. "I'm going to take the job," he said, "and I'm going to be terrible at it for the first 6 months. I'm going to want to solve problems the old way, and you're going to have to remind me that threatening city councilors is frowned upon." Clara laughed. "I can do that, and I want you to go back to school. Finish that degree you put on hold when Jamal needed you. The foundation will cover tuition, and before you argue about accepting help, remember you're a co-founder. You're literally paying yourself." I wasn't going to argue. Clara's smile widened. "I was going to say yes and thank you, and that I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For choosing to be more than what you were born to be. That takes more courage than anything else you've done." They sat in comfortable silence, watching early morning traffic begin to fill the streets outside. Delivery trucks, taxis, people heading to jobs that started before sunrise. The city waking up to a day that would be ordinary for most of them, extraordinary only in its normalness. "Can I ask you something?" Dante's voice was quiet. "Anything. That first night, when you whispered to me about being left behind, did you know? Did you have any idea what you were starting?" Clara thought back to that moment, to the lonely man and the empty chair and the impulse to offer comfort to someone who clearly needed it. "No, I just saw someone hurting and wanted to help. I didn't think about consequences or danger or any of it. I just acted. That's what I love about you." Dante's arm tightened around her shoulders. "You see people, not names or reputations or power, just people who need kindness. And you know what I love about you?" Clara nestled closer. "You let yourself be seen. Even when it scared you, even when it went against everything you were taught, you let me see you. That's the bravest thing anyone's ever done." The sky outside shifted from black to deep blue, dawn approaching with its promise of new beginnings. They'd survived the darkness, both of them, separately and together. They'd learned that power without compassion was empty, that kindness could be stronger than cruelty, that redemption wasn't something you earned once, but chose every single day. "We should probably go home," Dante said, though neither of them moved. "Probably. Get some actual sleep. That would be responsible. Be normal people with normal problems." Clara pulled back, looked at him seriously. "Dante, we're never going to be normal. We've seen too much, survived too much. But we can be good. We can be kind. We can be the kind of people who make the world slightly better just by existing in it. I can live with that." He stood, helped her up, left enough cash on the table to cover their untouched pancakes 3 times over. The waitress would have a good morning because of their presence. Small kindness, but it mattered. They walked out into the pre-dawn air, fingers interlaced. 2 people who'd found each other in wreckage and chosen to build something beautiful from the ruins. Behind them, the diner's neon sign flickered, casting pink and blue light onto the sidewalk. Above them, stars faded as the sun prepared to rise. And in that moment, standing on a street corner in a city that had tried to destroy them both, Clara Vance and Dante Moretti made a silent promise to each other. Not to be perfect, not to never struggle, but to keep choosing every single day to be better than what the world expected. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is refuse to become the villain everyone thinks you should be. Sometimes the bravest thing is to whisper peace into a storm and watch it learn to be still. 3 years later, Clara stood at a podium in City Hall, looking out at faces she'd come to know. Scholarship recipients, foundation board members, city officials, reporters documenting the announcement of expanded programs reaching 5 boroughs. Dante sat in the front row, Jamal beside him, both of them wearing proud smiles that made her heart full. When I was working as a waitress, Clara began, I learned that the most invisible people often see the most. We see the lonely businessman at table 12 who's been stood up. We see the stressed mother trying to afford dinner for her kids. We see humanity in its rawest form, before people put on their masks for the world. She paused, catching Dante's eye. Someone once asked me what I knew about protection, and I said it doesn't always feel like safety. Today, I want to revise that answer. Real protection, the kind that matters, feels like opportunity. It feels like someone believing in you before you believe in yourself. It feels like second chances and third chances, and as many chances as it takes to become who you're meant to be. The applause was thunderous, but Clara barely heard it. She was too busy watching Dante stand up, tears on his face, pride in his eyes, love in every line of his expression. After the ceremony, after the handshakes and photographs and promises to stay in touch, they found themselves alone in the same restaurant where everything had started. The corner booth was empty, waiting. Should we? Clara gestured toward it. Feels right. Dante took her hand, led her over. They sat across from each other, just like that first night. But everything was different now. The fear had transformed into trust. The loneliness had become partnership. The anger had mellowed into purpose. Do you ever regret it? Dante asked. That night, sitting down with me, starting all of this, Clara reached across the table, took both his hands in hers. Not for a single second. Do you? Never. You saved my life that night, Clara. You just didn't know it yet. No. She smiled. We save each other. The waiter approached, pad ready. They ordered without looking at menus, comfortable in routine, in knowing each other well enough that words weren't always necessary. And as the restaurant hummed with life around them, as the city continued its endless rhythm outside, two people who'd once been strangers held hands across a table and silently thanked whatever force had brought them together. Because sometimes whispered words in dark moments change everything. Sometimes kindness becomes revolution. And sometimes the quietest people hold the loudest power, not through force or fear, but through the simple, radical act of seeing someone's humanity and refusing to look away. Power without compassion is hollow. True strength protects instead of destroys. Kindness disarms the cruelest hearts. One whisper of empathy can silence decades of pain. Never mistake being overlooked for being powerless. The underdog sees what the mighty ignore. Revenge, executed with grace, restores more than it destroys. Quiet justice doesn't roar, it heals. And redemption doesn't always come from angels. Sometimes it wears blood-stained suits and learns to feel again. Sometimes it serves pancakes at 3 a.m. and believes broken people can become whole. The screen faded to black, but the story lingered. Because stories like this, about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, about choosing love over fear and compassion over cruelty, those stories never really end. They just wait for the next person brave enough to whisper peace into a storm. If this story moved you, if you believe that even the darkest souls can find light, we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us about a time when a small act of kindness changed everything. Tell us about the moment you chose to be brave when running seemed easier. Your story might inspire someone else to find their courage. And if you want more stories like this, tales of redemption and second chances, of people who refuse to become what the world expected, then subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Because every week, we bring you stories that remind us all that we're capable of more than we think. That sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is choose to be kind in a world that rewards cruelty. That sometimes whispered words matter more than shouted threats. That sometimes being human is enough. Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing. And remember, you never know when your own story of redemption might begin. It might start with something as simple as sitting down with a stranger and refusing to see them as anything less than human. Until next time, keep choosing kindness. Keep choosing courage. Keep choosing to be the person who whispers peace into storms. Because that's how the world changes. One whisper at a time.